Okay, everybody, before we get back to exploring the World Series from 1903 all the way up, I've decided to make a video that I said I would do earlier, and that is about the Tampa Bay Rays and their stadium situation in Tampa Bay and, what I feel they should do. As many of you know watching this, I do not like Tampa Bay. They are the only franchise that I despise. I feel like this team should not be in the city. The MLB has tried, and their experiment in Tampa Bay has failed. They're not drawing. Nobody's interested in going to their games. Their stadium is, old, and it's not MLB standard stadium anymore. But the problem is that Tampa Bay doesn't have any money to, build a new stadium, so they're basically stuck in that thing, and they can't leave until their lease expires. I think it's in 2021, so they got a while left to play there. A lot of people have been asking me, what does the MLB do? How do you keep the franchise in Tampa? I don't think that you can. I feel like this is one time where it's not working, it hasn't worked, and it's simply not going to work, and you need to move the team now. I understand why the MLB expanded into the Tampa market. I get it. The NFL had the Buccaneers there, and they had the hockey team. I think it's the Tampa Bay Lightning that play in Tampa. The problem is the Rays play in St. Petersburg. Why are they named the Tampa Bay Rays when they play in St. Pete? Now, if I knew that, I would tell you, but I don't know that. So my main problem with the Rays is that, they came in as an expansion franchise, and my thing with expansion franchises is you're not supposed to be good your first couple years. That's completely understandable. When they first joined the league, I think they joined in I think it was 96 or 97. Nobody expected them to be good. Everybody expected them to get stomped on, and sure enough, they did. They reach one World Series and they lose it to the Phillies in a World Series that the Red Sox should have been in. Even though I am a Yankees fan, I will agree that the Red Sox should have gone that year. But anyway, like I said, the problem is that Tampa's not making money, and their stadium is old, and they're not, getting revenue to come into it. And the MLB is a very money, centric business. If they're not making money, then something's wrong. And this is one time where I say to myself, your Tampa experiment is not working. It's time to call it quits. It's time to leave the Tampa market. And, I know what a lot of people think. They're saying, well, Walk Talk, you can't just move the Tampa Bay Rays out of Tampa Bay. That's not how it works. That you can't just steal a team. You can't just steal a team from their home city and, expect to make it go with things. Well, that's exactly what the NFL did with the Cleveland Browns. They just robbed Cleveland from Cleveland, and they moved them to Baltimore. So you can take the Tampa Bay Rays out of Tampa, and nobody would miss them. I mean, show of hands. Anybody think that Tampa Bay would be missed? Maybe one person, but that's okay. I'm not a Rays fan. But would I move Tampa Bay to? Well, if you look at the geographics of the American League East, Tampa's in Florida, and they're in a division with Baltimore, Boston, New York, and Toronto. Now think about that for a minute. Toronto has to fly all the way down to St. Petersburg to play Tampa Bay. If you look at the geographics of it, okay, Boston and New York is not, is not that long of a drive. You can reasonably drive there, maybe take the train. Baltimore, I can understand why they're in the AL East. I mean, geographically, region-wise, it makes sense. And Toronto, okay, that's a little far for Baltimore, but, New York and Boston, not that far at all. But Tampa Bay in the AL East, that makes absolutely no sense. It's like, why are the Miami Marlins and the Atlanta Braves in the NL East? Maybe the MLB should have looked at geographic reasoning, like the Pirates. Pirates should be in the NL East, not in the NL Central. So what I would do, and I've been thinking about this, and even though I've been very much against this, I'd move Tampa Bay to Montreal. Yeah, I admit that now. I'd go back and I'd try to get at Montreal. For those of you that are not old enough to remember, Montreal used to have a baseball team called the Montreal Expos. And they were, a decent team at times, but more or less they were a losing franchise. The problem that the MLB had the first time was they tried to pit them against the Montreal Canadiens. And I'm sorry to all the people in the MLB, but the Canadiens will always be the most popular team in Montreal. You can move a team there all you want and say, hey, cheer for this team. That doesn't mean that they're going to. I am one of them that says, okay, their team was, robbed from them. The MLB basically came in and said, okay, we're moving the team back to Washington. And I understand why they did that. They wanted a team to be able to compete in that market, because before the Nationals, the Orioles basically had the Washington, D.C. market. Now you have two teams that are there, and it's worked out very well. And Toronto is the only MLB team now based in Canada. If you move the Rays, which would not be a big loss, to Montreal, you could play in Olympic Stadium until you get the funding to build a new one. And I genuinely think the second time around, I think people would support the Montreal Expos. From what I saw, they had genuine support there. Even though they were a bad team, people would still go to their games. They would still try to cheer for Montreal. And, geographically, that'd be a gold mine. Can you imagine all those players? You get games against New York, Boston, Baltimore, and Toronto. That just spells money right there. You couldn't really ask for anything better other than maybe playing St. Louis, which means they'd have to be in the NL Central, which wouldn't geographically make sense. But, I've said this all along. Tampa has to move. And their stadium is not working for them. And one of the things I wish the MLB would just do is just come out and say, look, we tried this Tampa experiment. It didn't work. Now we're packing up shop and going somewhere else. And again, Tampa's one of those franchises who, if you move them, nobody would really mind. If they tried to move the Yankees, oh man, you would never be able to get away with that. But Tampa, completely different story. They're in a small market. Nobody really pays attention to them other than when they're winning, which is not a lot. And I think that you need to just cut your losses, say, hey, our Tampa experiment, we've tried this now for about 20-something years. It hasn't worked. People are not coming to the games. We're not getting the attendance that we want. We're not getting money. Move them. It's kind of like with the Oakland Athletics, too. What do you do with the Oakland Athletics? Which I'll make a video on one day. But let me know what you all think about Tampa. I think they should move to Montreal and become the Expos again and try it again. Be sure to subscribe to Walk Talk 21 for more great videos every single day. And I'll see you all around.